Hello, Scott. Today I'm going to be going over something that's pretty important to me, which is child poverty and what I would do to improve it. So it's been an ongoing problem in our country for years now. It's lasted throughout Labour and Conservative governments, and now there are currently 4.1 million children living in poverty. And previously, it's been really hard to find institutional change to education and financial support systems that would actually help children in poverty because, there are facts like children are quite difficult to monetize and they don't vote, so they kind of have very little presence on electoral campaigns, which is kind of unfortunate. Um, what we kind of do have to accept before we go into this is that children from low income families or children in poverty are not always supported by their parents in the way that they need to be. Um, and there's a lot of uncomfortable things about this. Like many parents that are signed off ill are like not fully capable of like supporting the child in the way that they need to be. Um, others will, budget poorly and not have like the academic or knowledge, like they won't have knowledge or skill or the resources to provide effectively for their children, even with government support. There's still errors made on that end of the scale. Um, and some children will be in poverty due to neglect. Um, Now, to fix a problem where children, the ones in poverty, is at the most crucial point like in their lives is really difficult, and for me it's because children are not given really any agency at all to help the situation become better for themselves. So for me, the first thing that I'd suggest is to remove the child's financial dependency um, from parents at a younger age than 16 or 18. Um, so how I'd go about doing this would be to change the education system in maths, so like Key Stage 3 GCSE maths. What I would do is I would change the syllabus to apply things directly to training skills around budgeting and finance planning. Now, for children in poverty, this is probably going to be more effective for them because those are the people that are those are the children that are less likely to see or hear about financial planning techniques and how to manage money efficiently and properly from their own parents, and they're going to be the ones that need it most because like higher income people will be able to you know either live off inheritance or get a sufficient level of education because their opportunities are greater. Um, so if you build budgeting and financial planning into Key Stage 3 and GCSE maths, um, it can give the children in poverty a solid grounding into how to run their own finances so that, if they come into a situation where they have more money than they have to spend, they don't mismanage that and they can start to actually understand how to build equity and take something like, oh, I have £400 a month or £400 a week and I only need to spend 350 of that and I've got 50 that's just like true disposable income and I can save half of that, um and then start building up some savings, and then that savings over time becomes enough for a deposit on a house, and then that house, those savings are translated into a tangible asset. Kids, it's quite a complex thing, but if you teach kids this in a way that's kind of engaging, it can kind of empower them to be able to make decisions for themselves a lot easier. Um, you know, and I think the issue at hand is that sometimes parents are mismanaging money from like universal credit benefits, and this should be adjusted so that children are given some of that money so that they have the power to to make sure that they're kind of if their parents can't support them, don't support them, that they are able to feed and water themselves, make sure they have clean clothes, like clothes of quality, and things like that. So they are able to budget based on income that their parents would previously be getting that would now be distributed into the household in a different way. So I'm not talking about purely increasing the volume of money that you give to people in poverty, although that needs to happen in like a small capacity. Um, but a lot of things could be done better from like a system, like from like the system's way of doing things, um, which is, you know, parents that are in really low income situations that are reliant on benefits, you know, a lot of things need to change, like how benefits should, for certain things, act as direct debits. So if you get, a lump sum of money, and some of that is housing benefit and some of that is child benefit and whatnot, your housing benefit should be something that you really never see in your account. It should just be that's in, and on the day that it comes in, it is direct debited out to your landlord. Um, because that's how finances are managed in middle and upper class families. That's how people plan for things. They go, I need to spend this much. Okay, well I get this much in, and that's a really nice figure to look at, but obviously some of that has to be spent on living. Um, and sometimes it's quite easy when you don't have the skills to actually entertain how that's going to work properly. Like they'll misspend and go, "Oh, I've got this much money," where in fact that's already allocated for something, and they spend it on something different. It's not good. So like reworking the education system, excuse me, you know, particularly in like core areas like math and English, helps give children a better understanding of how money works, and you kind of remove that kind of knowledge poverty and skill poverty that kind of traps people in low income families. Um, and then step two would be to accept that there is way more of an issue here than just money or a lack thereof. Um, and a lot of people are in poverty because of a lack of training. So you've got like skill deficits, people lacking the facilities to do basic tasks. Children will go to school in unclean clothes, somewhat malnourished, things like that, really horrible things. Um, so if you're introducing a system where children can budget things and parents are making mistakes, um, or I say children, I'm talking like really like 11 to 13 upwards, is what I'm thinking. Um, so you give children control of this so they can budget with their money. I need to spend this much on food to be healthy, and I need this much money to spend on detergent so that they, you know, can have the facilities to always provide for themselves effectively. Because I think in a lot of ways you make people better by giving them responsibility, not taking it away. Um, and I think if children are in a situation where they can go, hang on, I can be responsible for this, empower myself, make these decisions to make myself better, and you kind of sort that base level of need where, am I hungry? Am I, clean? Then it's a lot easier for them to perform in like academic areas, social areas, because, children in poverty or in low income families, pass less GCSEs. Um, and, that's really not great because you're neglecting a lot of talent. Um, and there's also like other social issues that children in poverty see. If a children is like in unclean clothes or like crappy clothes, they're easier targets for bullies. They're you know, and I'm not saying that you need to mollycoddle children. To and then like bully shouldn't be a thing. You should have some teeth and learn to defend yourself because that's a useful skill. But starting from that low level and kind of that level of esteem is really actually difficult to build anything off. It's a really kind of shit tier foundation. Um, and then step three is getting government to give a shit about this. So my argument for this starts primarily with you've got 4.1 million children in poverty. That's a ridiculous number. And if you think of that as a future workforce number, you know, that's several industries worth of people. Um, And so if you plot them against the distribution of a bell curve for an IQ chart, you're left with half of those people, on average, are going to be above 100 IQ, which means that they're serviceable human beings. They're above average. And you're going to be left with like the 0.2% that are very, very smart. So let's assume that these children are all supported and they pass GCSEs at the level that they're expected to. Then what you can do with that is you go, okay, we're going to put these above average people and we're just going to assume they all get average jobs. So they all earn, like 2015 statistic, they all earn like £27,000 or something around that. Which after you got like £11,500 tax-free personal allowance, works out at like £15,000 taxable income per year per person. You times that by 1.98 million, and that each year is a revenue of 6.2 billion in tax. Or another way of seeing that is in 5 years, paying for people to get out of poverty pays off HS2. Or that can be reinvested so that less people are in poverty less of the time, or you can invest it back into like social issues or infrastructure or things like that. That's kind of what I have to say about this topic, at least right now. I that's it really. Subscribe if you like the video, bell if you loved it. See you later.